back at it, man. It's the Underground Hip Hop Blog Weekly. We got a very special guest in the building today. You know, we about to talk about grinding from the ground up. You know, we about to talk about getting it out the mud. You know, I wanna really go in and to find out exactly what it took to create these new projects and why you buzzing so much, man. What'd you do? What'd you put in the sauce, bro?
Yeah, it's an artist by the name of Unlearn The World. He's from the Bay.
Bay Area.
And yeah, man. Underground Hip Hop Blogs published several of his latest releases.
Right.
And
hey, raw though.
It's an honor to have him on, you know. It's an honor to have him on. And but before we get into the interview, lots been going down.
Yeah.
When it comes to events that we're promoting out here in LA. July 22nd, we have our 10-year anniversary event, right, Cthree?
Immortal Technique.
And you're hosting it, co-hosting it with the legendary Pause One.
Shout out to Pause One.
You know, believe it or not, he's the one that pretty much put together the logo, designed the logo.
Yeah.
This legendary logo that we have here that everyone says is dope. Well, it came from the idea of Pause One. He's the one that actually structured it.
Right.
You know, put it together.
OG.
So our 10-year anniversary is coming up July 22nd. It's going to be your birthday the day before, right?
Yeah.
So that's a birthday show.
Exactly.
You're going to be performing, hosting. We got Veil 9. We got
Chino XL.
Chino XL, of course, the legendary Chino XL. And then we have the June 25th event, which is the second annual Indigenous Hip Hop Gathering, Custer's Last Stand. In collaboration with the LA Natives podcast. Shout out to the indigenous hip hop community, right, Cthree?
Man, because last year it was popping. You know what I mean? It was the place to be, you know? So I'm so glad that
I might need your help for that one, hosting the main stage.
Oh, of course. You already know.
You know? But you are going to be able to catch Cthree for sure at the Immortal Technique event, July 22nd. Get your tickets. Go to the catch.one. That's where you could go grab them. And bro, like, you can't get any better than booking Immortal Technique, by far one of the most influential independent underground rappers in the history of the game.
Nah. In a brand like undergroundhiphopblog.com, it's perfect. It's like the perfect marriage, you feel me? So come through. Make sure y'all come through to that one because it's finna go up. Wait, we got Common. Wait, what the fuck? We got Common coming up. So July 9th, make sure y'all come out to Burbank, right? So let's pull this up. It's out in Burbank. You can't miss it. It's Common. You feel me? That's one of the goats of the goats, kings of the gods. So come out and show some love. You feel me? Underground Hip Hop be promoting that event as well. And yeah, man.
So look, we got the events right here on our website, undergroundhiphopblog.com. Simply go to the events tab. We got the Custer's Last Stand. And yeah, the Common event. He's performing with Double G's Stardust Symphony. So he has like a full symphony band performing with him. That's legendary. Right, Cthree?
Shout out to Common for doing it the right way.
Who else is on this? How do you pronounce that?
Lettuce and Nika Costa.
Nika Costa. KCRW DJ Novena Carmel. Saturday, July 9th. At the Starlight Bowl. Burbank, California. You know, I've never seen Common live.
I haven't either.
This is something I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah.
But that being said, we have Unlearn the World. Let me go ahead and bring him in.
What's the deal?
Yo, we here. We live and we lit. I'm enjoying the conversation. Just hyped about Common, Immortal Technique. Like, those are, icons.
Bruh, it's gonna go up, man. Like Mondo said, man, this is my first time seeing Common too. I didn't see a lot of videos.
I was listening to Common, who was like straight up underground. Like, you know, this cat,
when he was Common Sense,
straight up underground.
Right. You know, he's been talented.
Can I borrow $1, Common?
Man, hey, you know what's crazy? The first time I got entered since the rapper, I was listening to some old records from what's his name? He's from Canada. The Socrates, bro. He had a record with Common back in the day on one of his first albums, and I'm like, yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. Like,
and he's been raw.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy, man. But yeah, brother, when was your first time Unlearn the World?
But look, check it out. Before we get into it, you are from the Bay, right? Unlearn the World. Yo.
Oh yeah, so you already know what it is. Like we just said, the comment show. Come out to that Burbank Starlight Bowl. My name is Cthree. This is the Underground Hip Hop Blog. We got a very special guest today. Unlearn the World. You know, he's from the Bay Area. You feel me? So we finna get into all of that slang, all the get down. You feel me? I want to know how you came up with these rhymes, man. What you've been going through and all that. But give us a second. I kind of want to dive in even about your album. New music, what's some plans for the future?
Hold on, I think he's telling us he can't hear us. Go ahead and try to troubleshoot this real quick and see what's wrong with the audio, if there's anything wrong.
Hold on, if y'all talking to me, I can't hear y'all at all.
Okay, we can hear you.
Go ahead and check this out real quick.
So this is what we do at Underground Hip Hop Blog. If you tuned in, then you understand. You know what I mean? We bring the best from the underground. We bring them up here. We do live shows. We bring them to the headquarters so they could do a session under the famous blog. Under the famous brand. You know what I mean? Underground Hip Hop Blog. So come through. Let's talk about these projects, this rollout plan. You feel me? Let's dive into it.
Yeah, we're trying to get him back. I think we're running into some technical difficulties.
In the meantime, let's roll up Bleezy. No, I was playing. Can we say this?
Yeah, of course. Let me see what's going on with this. Trying to get Unlearn the World back on.
Unlearn the World. I like that name, bro. Unlearn the World.
Yo, can you hear us again?
Yes, sir.
Okay, there we go, man. See, the energy is so high. Unlearn the World. I don't know what.
That's what it is, bro. They don't want it. It's a lot you gotta say today, bro. Look, Unlearn the World. Look, that was an automatic flag right there. Just the name. As soon as we typed it in, you feel me?
No, but before we get into it, I wanted to ask you are from the Bay, right?
I'm originally from New York City, Washington Heights, born and raised, and I stay in the Bay. I'm officially based in the Bay Area, Oakland. Shout out to the Bay Area, of course.
That's what I meant. You were based. Yeah. You are based in the Bay, but you are
based in the Bay,
right?
Yes, I am. Born and raised, Washington Heights, Manhattan, right above Harlem.
How you get that name? How you get the name? Or how did that come up, man? Unlearn the World.
Oh man, it's I talk about it a lot, but it's basically. I used to go by the I had a battle rap name which was Unorthodox all throughout like high school, right? And then I shortened it when I wanted to get a record deal. I shortened it to because Unorthodox they wasn't trying to sign me with some complex big ass 25-cent word, right? So from there, I shortened it to and then one of my favorite movies is Higher Learning. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the movie in big bright red letters it says Unlearn. So I said I want to use that as my rap name moving forward. And then when I was getting ready to put out my first album, I had put out a bunch of mixtapes with Unlearn. And then when I was getting ready to put out my first album, I saw that there was a group in Canada called Unlearn. And they're like, I don't know, like deep house. They're not even the same kind of music. But that made me want to switch it. So what I did is I took The World Is Yours by Nas, which was the song that made me start rapping to begin with. And then I put it all together, Unlearn the World. So it's like a mission statement, almost like a message and a rap name all together.
That's beautiful. So I really want to know conceptually what artists you grew up listening to, being from the East Coast and then coming to the Bay. And when did you come to the Bay?
I've been in and out of the Bay for like the last 20 years, but I'm an older dude, so like my whole career spans like 3 decades of hip hop. Like I was hanging out in the Loud Records offices when they just signed Big Pun, and Dead Prez. You know what I'm saying? I was like, doing street team for. I was doing street team for Bad Boy Records when they had just signed the Locks, right? Like I was in high school when all that happened, and then as I got older into college, it's more the neo soul movement, more the underground hip hop scene. So Raucous Records and working with artists like Jean Grey and Mr. Len from Company Flow. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like these are these are my mentors. Like I was like literally like a young little dude in the studio with them, just vibing and just like just learning. Um, and then fast forward from there, I moved out to the Bay at the height of the hyphy movement. So you had cats like Mr. Fab. You had cats like E40 was putting it down out here. I didn't even know how big E40 was until I got out here. It was crazy. And then from there, just everybody, like every era of hip hop, I've been able to pull something from it, and that's kind of helped inform the way that I create and my sound. Like I know what the young boys is listening to, but at the same time, I know what classic hip hop sounds like and feels like, and I try to bring all of that into what I do as an artist.
Let's talk new project now. Let's talk what's the plans going forward. You got this raw hip hop style, man. I don't even want to say like know who you sound like. You sound like you. But when I first heard it, I'm like, damn, Big Crit meets fucking Royce the 5'9". I'm like, okay, it's a real raw. I'm gonna give it to you straight type shit. But I appreciate it, man, because you can feel the passion within the records, man. But let's talk about this album. What's the plans and what's going on for the future for you?
So I put out an album called Crowns back in October. Probably easily the most successful album I've ever done. It got a lot of underground dope legends on it, on the production tip, but then also in terms of the features. So I'm spinning the block with it. I'm adding another 7 songs, and next month we releasing what I call the luxury edition. So you know what I'm saying? It's an underground record that sounds expensive. That's the way I like to put it. So we
Yeah.
got we got features from my man Skyzoo. We got features from my man Nems. My man Jag is on the record. Locksmith, Seven, Love the Genius is on this album. We got producers who did beats for Kanye just as much as we got producers who did things for Benny the Butcher, as well as my own production, right? So I produced like 80% of the album. And then the rest of it is multi-platinum or cats with plaques on their walls. So
Yeah.
it's a good mix. It's a good mix of all things hip hop. Like I like to call myself true school hip hop because I incorporate from every other generation. And that's what you're getting. You're getting like a lot more of the records are big records. And when I say big, not like in terms of like being smash singles or whatever, but big in terms of the way they sound. Like they sound anthemic. They sound big, and that's what I was going for. Like I'm an underground head at heart. Like that's where my heart is, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth and made my way. But I think that's a sound that's very true to hip hop and can go anywhere. Like there's an underground audience everywhere. Like there's cats who are able to go to tour to Europe with a boom bap or what you would consider a classic underground sound, more so than the kids who are doing the more melodic 808 driven records. You know what I'm saying? And there's a space for all of it. So it's like, why don't we incorporate it all instead of putting us in little boxes like they try to do?
100%.
I call that jiggy rap.
That's that jiggy.
I'm here for it too, but you know what I'm saying? I think people need to know how it started. And I think people need to and what I particularly appreciate about a lot of the things that people say about me and my music is that like I remind them of that era. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what I'm going for. Like I want to remind you what hip hop started with, or what, like, you know what I'm saying? Like when people started falling in love with hip hop, whether you was in high school, middle school, whatever, I want to remind people of that. I want to give people that kind of feeling.
I got two questions for you.
Yes, sir.
As far as the album, who was your favorite, let's say, legend? Because you got to work with say, some sizable. What was those people you really wanted to work with? Like, oh man, I've been wanting to work with you for years. Oh, and who is it that you still want to work with?
Yeah, to answer your question, I wanted to put myself in on tracks with people who are deemed legends, right? I'm a fan of Skyzoo. That's my
Right,
dude.
right, I'm like,
Actually, last week I was out there in LA and I just bumped into him on Fairfax just randomly, right? But we already put this video together. I'm about to release this video for my song "One Day Is Today," featuring Skyzoo. I had him out here in Oakland first Friday, just downtown, showing them how the town get down, and it was dope. It was a vibe, but I've been a fan of his music since like he was rapping against Jin and 106 in Park. Like that's how far I go back in terms of like my admiration for his lyricism and his pen and what he's been able to do with his career. So to get him on a record, I actually made the beat, and once the beat was done, I was like, this sounds like a Skyzoo record. So I reached out. I had already been in contact with him because we had brought him out to the Bay for the first time ever. Damn near sold out show up in downtown Oakland. So I got him on the record, and he represented. I told him, I said, I need you to talk your talk. So before he even gets into his verse, he just gets into his shit talking a little something, and then goes crazy on the record. So I was extremely hyped and proud about that. My man DJ Soros did the cuts on that. But then aside from that, my man Jag, Jag is from South Central, battle rap extraordinaire, but easily one of the dopest lyricists I've heard recently. So to get him on a record, he like all these people were literally on my list in terms of like
how
featuring
did you?
artists.
How did the NIMS project happen?
Oh yeah. So Nems, so I've been following Nems forever. Like the entire Fuck Your Life movement, the entire Gorilla Nems vibe, like underground New York street shit is that's my heart, right? And my one of my mentors is my man Domingo. Domingo's an amazing multi-platinum producer, produced things for like 3-6 Mafia, but also produced for Big Pun, Fat Joe, like
Yeah,
KRS-One, Rakim, like he's a legend, right? And you know what I'm saying? And he's my OG. He's one of my mentors in this game in terms of production, in terms of music, all of that. So Nems works with him, and they do a lot of business together. So when I had this record, and I'm a producer, so I'm making all these beats at the same time. So as a producer, I'm thinking of who can be on this record with me, who
yeah.
sounds like they can be on this record, right? So the Never That record, it says fuck the internet, I'm popular in real life. So I was like, yo, what more ironic and better way to have this kind of record go off than to have the dude who's popping on the internet right now basically say fuck the internet, right? So I reached out to my big bro Domingo. Domingo made the plug to Nems. I literally sent him the record, and within I think 20 minutes they said it's a go.
Oh,
He's
what?
he's locked in. You know what I'm saying? And I got the verse back super
He
quick,
just
so I
sent it.
was super
Oh,
happy about
okay. I was about to say he sent it back in 20 minutes.
it. Nah. He gave me the green light in 20 minutes, and then I think the
Yeah,
record came back within like a couple days. It wasn't that long. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Like he
I was
just
about
went
to
crazy on
damn, he locked in.
it.
Man, that's dope, man. That's what I'm talking about. So you set up this album, you basically set up this album to do what it did. You manifested this from jump, man. So what's next with it? Is it a tour? Are you coming out? What's around it? Merchandise? Any drops? Anything going on?
Yeah, everything. I mean, I'm putting together a luxury box, so it's gonna be like a piece of merch, like a T-shirt, along with some vinyl, or even a CD if people even listen to CDs anymore. But it's gonna be a luxury box, limited edition. I think I might only run 50, and get those for the true fans. But aside from that, like I'm a hip hop educator. Like one of my main gigs out here is the education director for a hip hop nonprofit called Hip Hop for Change, and we work in LA, we work in the Bay Area, we work all over the
Ah,
country, and we teach kids the history of hip hop. We get them to break dance, do graffiti, do rap songwriting, make beats, all of that. So we're exposing them to all the elements of hip hop, kindergarten through 12th grade. I also teach at the university level. Like I just did a conference at Harvard University where I lectured about the album, right? So I have it. I'm going to put out a web series, and I'm going to put out pieces of content from that lecture at Harvard University
that's
that
tight.
breaks down the
That's
entire
tight.
process of the album,
Yeah.
right? And just using it as a case study for hip hop creativity. How you learn about hip hop, and learning about hip hop helps to inform the way that you're actually writing your songs, right? Because you're pulling from all these different generations. I'm pulling from things that Grandmaster Flash did, but I'm also pulling from things that Russell Simmons did in terms of marketing. I'm pulling from things that P. Diddy did when he was working with Big. I'm pulling from like all these
You,
different eras and these
I'm
different things that
just
I know about hip hop.
just interested. Can you give me a top five? Is it possible? You feel me?
I think everybody got a top 5 because everybody has a different era, right? So you have the Mount Rushmores, right? Like that's what they've been doing lately, just having the Mount Rushmores for different eras, right? So you get, from 80 to like 92, you got Big Daddy Kane, Rakim, KRS-One, and you could throw in maybe Chuck D.
No, I
Right?
want your all time Mount Rushmore.
That's you killing me. Like first of all, okay, I would say Nas, I
All right,
would say KRS-One,
all right,
Busta Rhymes,
okay.
Black Thought, and that fifth space I think is going to be Jay-Z or somebody. I'm missing somebody, but
Uh,
that's literally all time. We talking about 50 years of hip hop, right? Because I don't want people trying to kill me for my hot takes and my opinions, right? So you got to consider 50 years. This culture is almost 50 years old, right? So I can't give you a Playboy Cardi in that list. That's not. I just can't. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's not a knock to him, but you just got to see from where it is,
yeah,
right?
yeah. No, I understand that. I understand that. But I'm shoot, man. I mean, that Mount Rushmore was fly. It for sure was fly. But I'm like, damn, where Tupac at?
Right, exactly. You know what I'm saying? I think Tupac is when you talk about golden era, like we talking from like, well, golden era is subjective, but I think it's like from 1986 to 1996. You have the golden era hip hop. The reason we call it the golden era is because that's the most diverse group of MCs
Mm,
in history of hip hop. Right? You had Queen Latifah at the same time you had Public Enemy. At the same time you had N.W.A. At the same time you had KRS-One and Rakim. At
yeah,
the same time you had Kid and Play,
absolutely.
right? Biggie, Tupac, a little bit of Jay-Z, Nas when he was a teenager, right? Like this is 10 years of that Run DMC. So golden era hip hop.
Being in New York, did you get the pre-Illmatic Nas? Like was those records?
I remember the song Halftime was on this soundtrack for this movie called Zebrahead. It ended up making the album Illmatic, but it was on this soundtrack. And I remember hearing him from there. I remember um what was the live at the barbecue, right? You know what I'm saying?
Okay,
When he
okay,
was
yeah,
talking about,
yeah, yeah.
but I remember being a teenager, being really young, hearing this, and then Illmatic came out. I think that summer where I was just going into high
It
school,
was over.
and changed my life.
Yeah.
I can't even explain to you, so much so that my name is Unlearn the World because of the world is yours. Like that was, you know what I'm saying? He says right in my book of rhymes, all the words past the margin, and I literally went to buy a rhyme book the next day.
Yeah.
Like that's how influential that song was. And for him to be only like 19 or 18 having written that, it's like
Hey,
that
shout
shows
out
you.
to Nas, man. He was the dude for me too. But the thing, what's crazy is I got introduced to one mic, right? That was the first
Mm,
I ever got introduced to. The second song was Ether. So
there you go.
in 2001, I must be like 8, 9 years old at the time, and I hear "fuck Jay-Z," and I'm like, damn, I didn't know what ether was, but it sounded like some shit, So yeah,
You poke the bear. You know what I'm saying? The thing about Ether is it's so fun because like Nas was never known for like battle rapping. Like he went through the whole Tupac East West Coast rivalry without saying a word, right? Pac is taking shots at him. Other people are taking shots at him. Not
I
a word comes from
I heard. Look, man, it is history.
him.
Look, I heard the fucking Nas diss to Tupac, man. I heard it.
Ah,
I heard it. I just feel like, look, man, it's timing. Everything is timing, right?
for
And
sure.
at that time, he wasn't ready for the lyrical war yet. Not yet. A couple years later, he kind of came into himself, but yeah, I heard
I
it.
mean, Tupac is a special kind of beast, and when he was aggressive, it caused people to think twice, right?
Right, right.
Um, and that's what it was. But when you Nas is Nas, and every now and again, Nas will remind you that he's Nas.
Look, man, look. Remember, look.
Like, let's not get it fucked up. Like, this is
Yeah, yeah.
Illmatic is arguably one of the best albums, not just hip hop albums. Like, fuck what Rolling Stone talking about with their list, because that shit is boo boo, right? But Nas easily has one of the best albums of the 20th century,
Oh
and
yeah,
he was a
100%.
teenager who wrote it, and it was only 10 tracks. It was 9 songs, 10 tracks long. I don't care what anybody says, and fast forward, right? He drops 2 albums in a row that are Grammy nominated, right? he's a fucking legend. Like, let's not, I can't say enough about Nas.
Yeah, 100%.
But when Ether came out, that really showed a different side of Nas that people weren't prepared for sure.
Right. So, let's talk about hip hop, the state of hip hop, where you see it going. You know what I mean? Do you see hip hop becoming what it once was? Do you see it evolving? Do you see it de-evolving? What how do you see it?
Here's my hot take on that, right? Because a lot of people ask me, because of the work that I do, right? Like, I'm a hip hop educator, so I study this like very deeply. I think that hip hop is in one of the better spaces that it's ever been, right? And the reason I say that is because, again, it goes back to how broad the spectrum is. Right? You got Coi Leray, but you also got Immortal Technique, like literally in the same genre of music. So there's an audience for everything, every kind of personality you could think of, right? You went to high school, you had the geeks, you had the nerds, you had the cool kids, you had the rich people, you had you know what I'm saying? Like, you had every kind of personality type in high school. Hip hop is an amalgam of that. Any personality type and whatever lifestyle they live, you can find at least 5 artists that represent that.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't take away from what the other cats is doing, right? And they're all multi-platinum artists. They all have their audiences. They all, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's an amazing kind of culture
I really like
in, right?
that too, man. It's something for everybody. Like, hip hop is a mature woman. She's a mature. She knows what she wants. You type shit.
Exactly. She's been around. She's been around, and she knows how to adapt, right? So it's one of those things where there is a disbalance between the music that is often promoted and the fuck shit that's promoted within the culture, and the things that can actually take us to the next level. But with that said, I think there's an amazing movement of getting people into the framework or the mind frame of what hip hop started with, right? Which is to be a vehicle for self-determination, right? Like, what we're talking about when we say hip hop, we're talking about a party in the Bronx for black and brown kids that became the more predominant form of youth self-expression around the planet Earth. Right? It literally started as a party and became a multi-billion-dollar industry within 26 years of it growing. Right? So that, to me, is in and of itself a miracle. And that allows us, people like yourself, people like me, to have careers, to have outlets, to have platforms for us to get our shit off and to say what we need to say and to do what we need to do. So I see, like, in terms of where hip hop is going, right? The music is going to be continuously more and more important as it relates to just pop culture, as it relates to shifting culture in general in America. The ownership is going to shift, right? We've spent maybe the last 20, 30 years with corporations really co-opting the narratives and the messages and the ownership of what's going on. And we're starting to see that shift. We're starting to move away from that. A lot more artists who are well-known are starting to do the independent thing. So you're going to see a lot of that shift. People just being able to be millionaires and black superstars just off of their name alone because of the internet and because of our access to platforms. So you're going to see more of that. But then on the flip side of that, right, you have the launch of the Universal Hip Hop Museum in New York. That's going to happen next year. Right. So there's going to be whole museums dedicated to hip hop, which brings in a different kind of audience, an older audience, maybe a whiter audience, because it's fine art. We're not, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's a multi-generational aspect of what goes on in hip hop now that we've never seen in our culture. So you can go to the Rolling Loud and you can find your audience as an 18-year-old kid or a 25-year-old kid. But if you in your 40s, you can go to a museum and be reminded of all the things that made you love hip hop to begin with. So the culture is here for everybody in all different ages and different age groups. I think the challenge is we need to start talking to each other. Like, the old heads need to give game to the youngins. The youngins need to be receptive to the game of the old heads. And anybody who's in between needs to kind of dabble the worlds and kind of bridge those gaps. But then what you're also seeing is the wave and the movement of hip hop education.
Right.
And you have hip hop heads who are talented, who have experience in the music industry, who have toured internationally or even nationally, who are now in classrooms teaching kids and teaching and training the next generation of kids, rooted in the history of it. And I think that that's one thing, me teaching hip hop myself, is one thing that has always kind of caused for concern. It's like, all these kids love hip hop. They'll give you the Cardi B lyrics word for word. They'll give you the Playboy Cardi lyrics word for word, the NLE Chopper word for word, but they don't know the history. They don't know where it started. They don't know where it came from. So I think if you give them that and you let them be grounded in that, it's going to change the way they perceive the entire culture. So you're going to see more hip hop education work happening, not only in universities but in schools. You're going to see hip hop schools. That's what I'm working towards.
I got two questions for you.
Know what I mean?
Two.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Where do you see hip hop and the metaverse crossing? Right? What do you see?
We're gonna run the metaverse. Like, we are going to run the metaverse, right? Like, we are going to be the soundtrack of it. We are going to be the architecture. We are going to be the fashion, the design, because everyone who is of the generation and of the mindset to pioneer things in the metaverse are from the hip hop generation. So whether they admit it or not, or whether they believe it or not, what they are creating in this space is very much influenced and informed by hip hop culture. So everything you're seeing, I mean, look at Fortnite is a perfect example. They're stealing our dances. They got little white kids, millions of little white kids is on Fortnite every day doing the Millie Rock, doing things that came out of New York, that came out of LA, that get doing all the street dances, not paying royalties on it, mind you. But nonetheless, it's still, the culture is being very prominent. The question then becomes, because hip hop is all over the metaverse, how much ownership do we have of that? Right? Where's the intellectual property? How are we getting paid off of our culture being the predominant kind of voice within the metaverse in terms of the way that people are designing things, the artwork, all of these different things, right? Like, we are bringing more attention to the metaverse than any other culture. When you look at the conversations that people are having on Earn Your Leisure or 19 Keys talking about NFTs, or any of us, you know what I'm saying? My homegirl Kayla Love, first female rapper to mint an NFT and to put music out as an NFT in this world, in this space. So you have a lot of pioneers within the culture that are actively pursuing things in the metaverse. And I think that we need to recognize where we're going with it, but also make sure that the culture is intact and that we get ownership of what's being put out there.
Well, who's they that run it?
There's no they that runs it, but when you look at when you study the metaverse, not study, but when you look at it, when you look at the people who are at the helm of these different IOs, right, to mint NFTs and to release NFTs or to be in the metaverse, it's a predominantly white space in terms of the ownership, but the content, the products are predominantly hip hop based. So I have an issue personally, right, in terms of, again, white ownership over black and brown art. That to me is an issue.
This one right here is a good topic,
Absolutely.
because then it goes to the point of like the internet. You know what I mean? And it's, unless we create a new internet in a completely different situation, we're going to be running through that system. And see, now we talking about finances. Now we talking about our economy and where we putting the money in, and because it's all going to go to the Federal Reserve. Which
ultimately, this is my opinion. White supremacy still exists.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no one. 100%. And what I'll add about white supremacy is that white supremacy is literally encoded into the things that navigate through the internet, because these people are making decisions in rooms where there are no black and brown people.
Right.
So by virtue of that, by virtue of the absence of black and brown voices in the decision making and the design process, you are creating a platform for white supremacy to remain there. And until we're able to get in those rooms and have those conversations, and this is not to say every white person is racist. There's no black people in the room. There's no Latinos or native people in the room. You're just gonna get white people shit. You're not gonna get you know what I mean? So we just need to be in those rooms. We need to have those conversations. And I'm, as a rapper, I'm saying we need less rappers. We need more designers.
I had this conversation with a bunch of a bunch of high school kids going to college, right? And we were talking about a bunch of needed things in the black and brown community that has to happen. And a lot of this stuff came up, right? But what I've noticed is that we actively been in the room. There's a lot of people who've been in the rooms. It's it's a lot of people who've been advocates of this struggle, right? But the problem is that our money has been tied up with their money while we tried to mobilize our struggles. We can't do that. We can't put the same money in and then expect it to help us and them. That's not how it works. We need our own economy. We need our own bank system. Without a bank system, for everyone to put their money in, I actually think you should bank based off ethnicity, right? You should.
Okay.
They do it.
Well, you know,
right? No, I see what you're talking about is controlling the dollars that are coming in and out of the black or brown community.
Right, because then we control the royalties that come in for streams. We control the royalties that come in for movies and film. They control that back end, right? And when we say they, I say the powers that be that control money.
Hey, look, shout out to the LA Natives podcast. We always talk about this over there. It's not we're not attacking all white people.
Right.
But we are attacking the motherfuckers that are disrespecting the land, the wind, the water, and the fire.
Right.
And then the greedy motherfuckers, they're exploiting somebody because they just instinctively think they're better than you.
Right.
Right. But they've been trained to. And I think when we talk about white supremacy, we're not talking about one individual white person or a Karen or whatever the case is. We're talking about a system, bro.
Right.
Like, we're talking about a system. They have designed it based on a psychology that they had coming to this country or coming to this hemisphere that made them scared, right? Fear is a very powerful engine in terms of creating constructs in the brain for protection. So you have a group of people who come from Europe to this country, feared for their lives, and create constructs that unfortunately dehumanize the people who already inhabited this land. And bring in other people to further continue to build this land. But this is rooted in a psyche, and that psyche, that mentality is then baked in to the system that they created. So you can't fight systems as individuals. Right? None of us can sit here and get an army together and get the strap and go to fight a system, because the system exists in the ether. We need systems, and we need people in our culture that think systematically and can create counter systems. So when you talk about banking, right, Killer Mike owns a bank. When you talk about streaming, Jay-Z runs Tidal, right? But how many of us are saying, "Yo, we need to be in Killer Mike's bank account"?
But see,
how many of us are really supporting Tidal? Right,
but
instead of Spotify.
But the problem as well, because if we can get a bank system that doesn't go back to the Federal Reserve, that's the point. We need to make a connection back to native lands. If the money isn't going to be fueled in indigenous, then it's really no point, right? Because it's going back. Now I completely understand what you mean. Going to any of these different black banks, it wouldn't really help. Killer Mike, Killer Mike, put this money. Hey, shout out to Killer Mike, man. I love that dude, man. This is something I've always thought about. So maybe we can sit down and talk about this. It's not a shot at Killer Mike, but I think that as a community, we can come together and figure out how to send our money to natural places with natural resources, supply and demand. Right? That's what they doing, bro.
I'm gonna add to your point, because I'm with you. I'm with you. What I would add though is, before we even get to that, we have to fix our own mentality, right? If your brain is hardwired or conditioned to say, let me get this little bit of money that I got and go buy Gucci. Let me get this little bit of money I got and go buy a car, instead of let me go get this little bit of money and go buy land.
Yeah.
Right? Go buy crops, learn how to garden, learn how to live in a collectivist mindset, which is most black and brown people come from collectivist mindsets. African tribes are collectivists, right? Indigenous tribes are collectivists, meaning that they believe in the community in and of itself supports the livelihood.
Right.
Where the world and the system that we live in now is individualist.
Yeah.
It's about the one person making it pop. This is so we have to fight our mindset first before we can even take our money and go do anything.
No, you're 100% right.
If I'm getting this bag and I want to buy a fucking belt or a car instead of like, yo, let me buy land, let me invest it in other things that are gonna help the community.
Yeah.
Then it starts with the mentality thing first and foremost.
There's a book called The Falsification of African Consciousness, right? And what it says it's a short read too. Check it out when you can. It says you take one's soul. No, you take one's history. You take their soul, right? If you don't know the process, if you don't know your ancestors' process, then it's gonna fail. You taking someone else's way of fixing things. This lineage way of fixing things. This is not in your DNA. You don't understand. You don't get it.
Right.
You feel me?
All the more reason for young people who is, especially if they're young people who identify with hip hop culture, it is all the more reason for them to learn the history of it.
Absolutely.
Because when you are moving through life in a lifestyle or in a culture absent of the history, it's like getting food with no nutrition. Right? It's like getting McDonald's hamburgers because you're hungry, but there's no nutritional value in the hamburger. It's food based on a true story. You know what I'm saying? So we have consciousness that is based on a true story. We don't understand the history, so we're moving about with all the symptoms of the problem, with all the solutions that we don't recognize are solutions because we are not grounded in history. So the more grounded in history we are as it relates to hip hop, the more grounded we're going to be in terms of understanding Black and brown traditions of expression and traditions of community. And that'll kind of help us to shift our thinking, which will in turn shift the paradigms and shift a lot of the things that we want to see change.
Hey man, you heard it right here. This is Underground Hip Hop Blog. My name is Cthree. This is Unlearn the World. We going deep in, bro.
I'm here for
it. I got one more question for you, brother.
Let's go.
What is your definition of underground hip hop?
I think in diagrams, right? Like my brain thinks in shapes. I can hear things and like literally create shapes in my brain. So when I think about underground, you have a certain like level here where everybody is looking. All the eyes are on this level. They're on this plateau. Everybody's looking. Now you have all these big things in the sky that they can look up. And then you have all these things below the surface that are still bubbling. People are still climbing, trying to get out, right? And that's what it is. When we talk about underground, I think all too often we think of underground as a certain sound, right? The predominant sound of hip hop used to be boom bap hip hop. And now when you listen to artists who are doing boom bap hip hop, we consider them underground. Why is that? Right? Because somebody else outside of our culture moved the goalposts in terms of, oh, boom bap hip hop is still underground or independent hip hop. Right? What we're talking about is music that needs to be looked at. They're like that diamonds in the rough that need to be dragged out of the mud. Right? Yeah. All hip hop is underground because hip hop is an underground culture. They didn't want us to be here. We made our way here. They have to deal with us now, right? And the more that they have to deal with us, the more they try to steal what is ours, right? The entire culture is underground, right? So I love the fact that y'all call it Underground Hip Hop Blog because underground hip hop is always going to be underground. There's always going to be the element of the culture that no one pays attention to that becomes pop culture out of nowhere. And by the time it becomes pop culture, we're over it and we're moving on to the next innovative phase. Yeah. Right, like that's where we are. So, I mean, it could be a mixed bag in terms of being labeled or being called an underground hip hop artist, right? I think it's more we're all just more independent, and we are autonomous, right? We have control over what we want and who we are.
Right, man. Whew, the professor himself, man. You feel me? I actually got to come to one of your classes, bro. Can I sit in? Can I come? You feel me? Can I come just check it out, bro?
No, yeah, you could come through. Yeah, you could totally check it out. I'm gonna start doing some live broadcasts where I'm teaching and doing some lectures. I'll be in LA teaching and doing some things. So yeah, I'll tap you in and we can get it popping. But be on the lookout for that Crowns lecture, Harvard University. We do.
Oh yeah, we gotta see that. The sky zoo. Man, exactly. Let's break exactly, man. Exactly. Yeah, man. I can't wait to do that, man. So this concludes our interview. Unlearn the World. you know, we got to really dive in, talk about the new album, talking about the single Sky Zoo. We got Nims. And who was the third artist?
Man, it's a Jag. We got Locksmith. Love
Jag.
the Genius. Like, yeah, it's crazy.
Man, go ahead, shout out everybody for the album. And make this the outro. Shout out everybody for the album. Who helped?
Yeah, so shout out. Yeah. Peace to everybody who's on this album. My man Nabian, my man DJ Payne 1, my man Jake 1, my man Noodles, all the producers that made the album, my man Sincere Noble, just a bunch of really heavy hitting producers, man. Like I'm really proud of all of them and everything that they contributed, including myself. I made most of the beats, so fuck with me. I make beats too. But yeah, shout out to Sky Zoo, shout out to Nem, shout out to Jag, Love the Genius, shout out to Locksmith. Shout out to Bria Leone. Shout out to Rizzo. Like all the people who are singing and adding different components, the horns, adding musical instruments to things. Just, you know, shout out to my man Jay Wash, who mixed and mastered the whole album. Entourage Studios in Hollywood. That's my guy. Like that's my guy. Shout out to Entourage Studios. That's my management. They got a studio in Hollywood. That's where I recorded the whole album. So shout out to them. Made the album sound bigger and better than ever. So shout out to everybody. Tune in. That video dropping soon. The deluxe or the luxury version of the album dropping in July. Stay locked in for that. I'm gonna be doing hella shows, festivals, all those things.
Out here.
You know?
Here.
Yeah, we here. We here.
Yeah, so y'all heard it from him. Y'all heard it from Unlearn the World himself. My name is Cthree. This is the Underground Hip Hop Blog. This concludes. I'll see you next week.